When we think of Star Trek, we think of the USS Enterprise boldly journeying into the final frontier to peacefully explore and seek out new civilizations. Well, Starfleet had to go back to the drawing board and thoroughly examine their fleet, especially after massive attacks like the Battle of Wolf 359. One of Starfleet's leading new designs was the Prometheus-class, which was designed for deep space tactical assignments. This was a highly classified design, but a very unique starship. Today, we break down the ship to explore what it's made of. Hello, I'm Captain Jack and welcome to the Hangar Bay. On this channel, we take a deep dive into the best starships, technology, and more from your favourite sci-fi universes. Remember to hit that subscribe button for the latest videos. If you enjoy these videos, consider hitting the join button to support our research and development of these topics. While you're watching, comment what you would call a Prometheus-class starship. Seriously, get commenting. We'll like the best ones. The Prometheus-class starship came in a length of 415 meters. However, official records appear to have a discrepancy in the size of the starship, something we'll cover in the behind-the-scenes section of our information report. Designed for Starfleet's deep space tactical assignments, the Prometheus-class was equipped with unprecedented levels of automation. This, combined with its advanced tactical systems, made the class one of the most powerful combat vessels within the Alpha Quadrant and Federation Starfleet. In terms of the battle systems, the primary systems on the class included regenerative shielding, ablative hull armor, Type 12 phasers, and both photon and quantum torpedoes. While these sound impressive, the real unique feature of the Prometheus class was the multi-vector assault mode. This assault mode allowed the starship to split into 3 semi-independent sections. Each section would then be able to operate on its own in battle and deliver massive force against an enemy target. To expand upon this, all 3 sections of the starship were warp capable. Due to a combination of the onboard weapons and the multi-vector assault mode, a Prometheus-class vessel could easily disable a Starfleet Nebula-class starship while at warp. Other starships within the fleet did have similar capabilities, such as the source of separation of a Galaxy-class starship. However, in the case of the Galaxy-class, the source of separation typically meant only the star drive section of the design had the warp drive, leaving the saucer section without warp and limited weaponry. Given all 3 sections of the Prometheus class were capable of warp, the warp drive of the class had to be highly advanced. While the exact information remains classified, the warp drive of the Prometheus made the ship of the class faster than any other starship in the fleet by the mid-2370s. The drive was capable of maintaining speeds exceeding warp 9.99. While the starship design had the standard Starfleet automation systems on board, the class also featured holo emitters installed on every deck. This was designed to allow the ship's emergency medical hologram, the Mark II, to access all areas of the ship. Previously in Starfleet designs, like the Intrepid class, EMHs were limited to the sickbay only. When looking at the interior design of the Prometheus class, it is made clear that the starship was designed for combat. Looking at the bridge, you can see it was designed with efficiency in mind. The commanding officer had visual access to all of the major command stations when they would be seated in the command chair. The helm and another station, which could be operations, were in front of the commanding officer's chair, but sunken down by 3 steps. It allowed the commanding officer to oversee what was going on. The front console was also where the multi-vector assault mode could be activated. Additional stations were mounted on the wall, which ran the entire length of the room. After the commander's chair was a master systems display. Ops and tactical stations were starboard and port, respectively. Another key location on the Prometheus class was the sickbay. These were rather minimalistic. It contained one single surgical biobed and a sparse research area. Still, the USS Prometheus had a sickbay fully stocked with the latest in medical technologies. This sickbay was one of the first to test the emergency medical hologram Mark II program. The prototype USS Prometheus, NX-59650, was launched from the Beta Antares shipyard, located in the Antares sector, on stardate 50749.5. That's around 2374 for those of us who don't know the stardates at the back of our hands. The starship was developed in response to the Dominion threat. Due to its design, the Prometheus was one of the most advanced vessels during the latter half of the 24th century, and well into the 25th century. When the starship was launched, it was so highly classified that only 4 members of Starfleet were trained to operate it. Access to most onboard systems and communications was restricted to level 4 clearance. The Prometheus was out in the frontier, alone, when it was hijacked by Romulans. While escaping with the Prometheus, the Romulans made light work of the Nebula-class USS Bonchoon, which had been sent to stop them. The hijackers activated the ship's multi-vector assault mode and proved why the Prometheus was an effective combat ship. While disabled, the USS Bonchoon was able to recover and was still operational within Starfleet. While initially able to escape the Starfleet pursuit, the Romulans did not count on the Prometheus receiving a subspace transmission from the USS Voyager. The Intrepid-class starship was stranded in the Delta Quadrant and had transmitted its Mark I emergency medical hologram, known as the Doctor, to the ship to deliver a message about its situation. While detected, the Doctor pretended to be the Prometheus' emergency medical hologram and claimed he was neutral to the conflict given he was a doctor. Eventually, the Doctor was assisted by the Prometheus' own EMH Mark II. The two holograms were able to win back the starship. The Doctor used neosine gas, which would of course not affect the computer programs, such as himself, and knock out the Romulan agents. The two EMHs took control of the Prometheus, despite not having knowledge of the controls, and were able to destroy an opposing Romulan warbird. Thankfully, a Starfleet battle group caught up and was able to assist the Prometheus and the two EMHs. Starfleet were eventually made aware of the USS Voyager's situation, thanks to the Doctor being able to complete his original mission. Following the ordeal, the Doctor was returned to Voyager. It is presumed the Prometheus was taken back into Federation shipyards to be repaired and inspected. Now, it is unclear how many Prometheus-class vessels were in service to Starfleet. We know that the USS Prometheus is active as of 2378. After its ordeal with the Romulans, it was one of the many Starfleet vessels that was present at Earth when the USS Voyager finally returned home. Another Prometheus-class was possibly the ship that made first contact with the species known as the Valnacut in 2384. Though this did take place in an alternate timeline, and thus it's unconfirmed if it really is a Prometheus-class starship. The design of the Prometheus-class comes from the veteran Star Trek production member Rick Sternbach. Very early on in the design process, it was decided that the starship would be a 4-nacelle design. This allowed the engineering section to easily split along the horizontal axis into what Sternbach labelled as the upper warp hull and the lower warp hull. The nacelles were intentionally reminiscent of the Sovereign class. Once designed by Rick, the CGI model was rendered by Foundation Imaging's Adam Mojo Lebowitz and Brandon McDougall. Originally, the script for the episode of Message in a Bottle, which the Prometheus class appeared in, called for the starship design to split into 5 starships. Thankfully for the effects team, the producers of Star Trek Voyager decided that this would be far too complex to make work on screen. The interiors of the starship were designed by Star Trek Voyager's production designer, Richard James. Some of these sections were redressed portions of the recreated USS Excelsior bridge that had been made for the episode Flashback. The bridge set would later be redressed for the Nova-class USS Equinox. As I mentioned at the start of this video, the size of the Prometheus class is up for debate. In Star Trek Starship Spotter, the design is mentioned as 415 meters, with a beam of 170 meters and a draft of 113 meters. However, the Eaglemoss Star Trek Starships collection listed the length of the Prometheus class as 126 meters. This does seem a little bit small, but when you take into account the multi-vector assault mode, it could make sense. While only appearing a few times in Star Trek's on-screen adventures, the extended canon of the books did feature another Prometheus-class starship, which would be called the USS Cerberus. This would serve as Admiral William Ross's personal flagship. That's our breakdown on a Prometheus-class starship from the Star Trek universe. While one of the impressive warship designs from Starfleet and the Federation, it did not appear much within the Star Trek series and movies. Which is a shame. It would be fantastic to see more of this class on our screens one day. To support and continue the adventures here on the Hangar Bay, consider hitting that join button and checking out how you can support the channel. While you're watching, subscribe for more videos, and use the playlist on the end screen to check out our other Star Trek Starship breakdowns. That's the end of this video. I've been Captain Jack in the Hangar Bay. Remember, if you're talking about science fiction, we want to hear about it.